The doctor came to save a dying man, but instead, he witnessed something history was never meant to remember. August 1833. The air over Red Hollow estate didn't move. It pressed down, thick, wet, suffocating, like the land itself was holding its breath. Dr. Elias Boone had traveled nearly 14 miles from Charleston, summoned by a letter marked urgent. The master of the estate, Edwin Carter, was said to be near death. Fever, delirium, collapse. Nothing unusual for a plantation in this heat. Nothing that should have made the messenger refuse to meet his eyes. When Boone reached the outer gate, he noticed the first thing that didn't make sense. No guards, no overseer, no one waiting, just the gate, already unlocked. He stepped through anyway. The field stretched wide under the sun, cotton rows moving gently in the wind, and workers, still working. But something was wrong. No shouting, no whip cracks, no overseer on horseback, just quiet coordination. Like every movement had already been agreed upon. Boone frowned, adjusting his coat as sweat gathered at his neck. That's when he saw him. A man walking toward him from the direction of the main house. Dark skin, mid-20s, posture straight, eyes steady. Too steady. Not the lowered gaze Boone expected. Not the hesitation. Not the fear. The man stopped just a few feet away. "Dr. Boone," he said, voice calm, measured. Boone blinked. "You know my name." "Yes, sir." No stutter, no forced politeness. Just certainty. "I'm Caleb," the man continued. "I've been expecting you." Something cold moved through Boone's chest. He glanced past Caleb, waiting for someone else to appear. A supervisor. A white authority. Anyone. No one came. "Mr. Carter," Boone said finally. "Where is he?" Caleb held his gaze, just a second too long. "In the house, sir." "I'll take you to him." They walked side by side toward the main house, a silence settling between them that felt deliberate, controlled. As they passed the yard, Boone noticed more things. Workers carrying tools, moving in pairs, exchanging quiet looks. Not the usual exhaustion. Not the dull obedience he had seen on dozens of plantations. This was something else. Awareness. They knew something. And whatever it was, they all shared it. Boone swallowed, his unease growing heavier with each step. "Where is the overseer?" he asked. Caleb didn't slow down. "He's not here." "Not here." "No, sir." No explanation. No elaboration, just absence. They reached the steps of the main house. White columns, clean, untouched, as if nothing had changed. But everything had. Inside, the air was cooler, still, too still, no servants rushing, no voices, no movement. Just silence, stretching through the halls like something alive. Boone turned slightly toward Caleb. "Where is Mrs. Carter?" "Gone." "Where?" "Away." Each answer shorter than the last, like doors closing. Boone felt it then, clearly, for the first time. He wasn't being guided, he was being led. Up the stairs, down a hallway, toward a door left slightly open. Inside, on the bed, lay Edwin Carter. Alive, barely. Sweat soaked through his shirt, eyes half open, unfocused. But breathing. Boone stepped forward quickly, relief mixing with confusion. At least something made sense, at least someone was still in charge. But as he reached for his medical bag, he felt it again. That same cold weight in his chest. He turned slightly. Caleb was still standing there, watching. Not like a servant, not like a man waiting for orders. But like someone, making sure things stayed exactly the way they were supposed to be. And for the first time since arriving, Dr. Elias Boone understood something he couldn't yet explain. This plantation was still running, but no one was in control. Or worse, someone new was. Dr. Boone forced himself to focus. Work first. Questions later. He opened his bag, checked Carter's pulse, lifted his eyelids. Fever, severe. But not unfamiliar. I'll need water, Boone said. No answer. He looked up. Caleb hadn't moved. Still standing there, watching. Not waiting. Water, Boone repeated. Caleb turned his head slightly. No words. And then he was gone. Boone exhaled slowly. Something about that exchange felt wrong. Not disobedience, not delay. Just absence of urgency. As if the master's condition wasn't the center of the room anymore. Caleb returned. Set the water down. Still no eye contact now. Still no deference. Boone worked, cooling Carter's forehead. Checking his breathing, listening for anything that might stabilize him. Minutes passed. Then more. But something didn't change. No one came in. No servants checking. No wife. No overseer demanding updates. Nothing. Just Boone, the dying man. And Caleb. You've been managing the house? Boone asked. Caleb nodded once. Since when? A pause, not hesitation. Calculation. 9 days. Boone's hand stopped. 9 days. That long, without oversight. Without collapse. But outside, the fields were still moving. Still working. Still, functioning. Who gave the orders? Caleb met his eyes. No one. Boone let out a short breath. Almost a laugh. Almost. That's not possible. No response. Just that same steady gaze. You expect me to believe. Boone continued, that nearly 100 people are working, eating, sleeping, without structure. Caleb's voice didn't rise, didn't harden. It just settled. They know what needs to be done. That answer stayed in the air, too simple, too complete. Boone turned away. Back to Carter. But his focus was slipping. Because the question had changed. This wasn't about illness anymore. This was about control. Calm, organized. He walked to the window. Looked down. And saw it clearly. Groups rotating tasks. Water being distributed. Tools passed hand to hand. No chaos. No confusion. No supervision. It wasn't disorder. It was design. Boone stepped back slowly. Something inside him finally clicked. Plan this. Caleb didn't answer, didn't confirm, didn't deny. Because he didn't need to. Boone turned fully now, eyes locked on him. Where is the overseer? This time, Caleb answered immediately. He won't be returning. What does that mean? A pause, then. It means. Things are different now. Boone felt it. Not fear yet. But something close. Because that sentence wasn't a report. It was a statement. He moved toward the door. Instinct. I should inform the authorities. I'll need to return to town. Caleb stepped into his path. Not aggressive, not rushed. Just, there. Blocking. Boone froze. You can't leave yet. The words were quiet, but absolute. Boone stared at him, trying to read it, trying to find hesitation. There was none. That's not your decision. Caleb tilted his head slightly. Not defiant, not submissive. Just, certain. It is, for now. Boone felt the shift completely then. Not confusion. Not uncertainty. Clarity. He hadn't arrived at a plantation in crisis. He had stepped into something already finished. Already decided. And without realizing it, he had become part of it. Boone didn't argue. Didn't push past him. Because something in Caleb's voice wasn't a threat. It was certainty. And certainty was harder to fight. Come, Caleb said. Not a request. Not an order. Just direction. Boone followed. Because there was nothing else to do. They didn't go downstairs. Didn't go outside. Instead, Caleb led him deeper into the house. Past rooms Boone had already seen. Into parts of the plantation he wasn't meant to notice. Voices. Low. Measured. Not panic. Not fear. Conversation. Caleb stopped at a closed door, then opened it. Inside, 6 people sat around a long wooden table. All of them enslaved. Boone froze, because what he saw was impossible. Not their presence, but their posture, their eyes, their stillness. They weren't waiting. They weren't reacting. They were deciding. One of them looked up, older, gray at the temples, hands steady on the table. "You're the doctor." Not a question. Boone nodded slowly. "Yes." The man studied him for a moment, then gestured to an empty chair. "Sit." Boone didn't move at first, because something about this felt wrong in a way he couldn't name. Not violent. Not chaotic. Just inverted. Everything was in the wrong place. But he sat. Because standing felt worse. The room closed in around him. Not physically, but in focus. Every eye now on him. "You've been called here to treat Mr. Carter," the older man said. "Yes. And you will. But first, you need to understand where you are." Boone frowned. "I'm on Red Hollow Estate." A faint shift in the room, not laughter, but something close. "No," the man said quietly. "You're not." Boone felt it again, that same drop in his chest. "Then where am I?" The man leaned back slightly, hands folding. Calm. "In a place that used to be one." That answer shouldn't have made sense. But somehow, it did. Because outside, everything still worked. Just differently. "What is this?" Boone asked. This time, his voice wasn't steady. "An uprising?" The word hung in the air. Wrong. Too simple. "No. That's what they would call it. But they'd be wrong." Boone looked around the table. Each face calm, grounded, certain, not desperate, not reckless. "You removed authority," Boone said slowly, testing it. The man shook his head. "We removed dependency." That landed hard, because it reframed everything. The fields, the silence, the structure. It wasn't absence. It was replacement. "You planned this," Boone whispered. The man met his eyes. "For years. Years. We learned, watched, waited, and when the moment came, we didn't take control. We revealed it." Boone sat back slightly. Because that was worse. Much worse. This wasn't chaos. It wasn't rebellion. It was evolution. "And Carter?" Boone asked. "If he dies, what happens then?" A quiet exchange of looks around the table. "Then," the man answered, "that depends on him." Boone blinked. "What do you mean?" "He's been awake before. That changed everything. He knows. Enough." Boone felt his thoughts racing now, trying to fit this into something familiar, something explainable. But nothing fit. Nothing held. "You're not being held here, doctor," the man continued. Not threatening, not reassuring, just stating, "You're being included." Boone stared at him. Because somehow, that felt worse than captivity. "What do you want from me?" A pause. Then, "To witness." Boone swallowed. Because now he understood. This wasn't about hiding. This wasn't about escaping. This was about being seen. And once seen, it couldn't be undone. Outside, the plantation kept moving. Inside, something else had already changed. And Boone was no longer outside of it. Boone didn't remember leaving the room, didn't remember standing up, or walking back down that hallway, because his mind was somewhere else, trying to understand what he had just seen. A plantation without control, a system without force, and people who no longer needed permission. He stepped back into Carter's room. Everything looked the same. The bed, the sweat, the dying man, but nothing felt the same anymore. Caleb was already there, standing where he had been before, watching. Boone moved to the bedside, checked Carter again. Pulse weaker now, breathing shallow, but still there, still holding on. "You said, he's been awake." Boone didn't look at Caleb when he spoke. "Yes." "When?" "A few hours ago." Boone frowned. "And you didn't send for me?" "No." That answer hit differently now. Not neglect, not delay, choice. Boone leaned closer. Something changed. Subtle, but real. Carter's fingers moved. Barely. Then again. Boone straightened. "Mr. Carter." No response. But the movement stayed. Controlled. Intentional. "You can hear me," Boone said quietly. This time, Carter's eyes opened. Not fully, but enough. And they weren't confused. They weren't lost. They were aware. Boone felt a chill run through him. Because that look didn't belong to a dying man. "You took your time, doctor." The voice was weak, dry, but clear. Boone leaned in. "You've been conscious." Carter's lips moved slightly. "A while." Boone glanced toward Caleb. Then back. "You knew what was happening." A faint smile. Not proud. Not ashamed. Just tired. "I had to." Boone shook his head slowly. "You lost control." Carter's eyes shifted. Just slightly. Toward Caleb. Then back. "No. I gave it up." That changed everything. Not takeover. Not collapse. Not failure. Permission. Boone stepped back. Because suddenly, the room felt smaller. "What are you saying?" Carter exhaled slowly. Like each word cost something. "I built something that couldn't last. And they built something that didn't need me." Boone looked at Caleb, then at Carter, trying to find the fracture, the lie, the weakness. There was none. "You," Boone said. Not as judgment. As logic. Carter let out a faint breath. "That's what men like me expect. But that's not what they chose." Boone's chest tightened. Because now, this wasn't about power anymore. It was about restraint. And restraint was harder to control. "What happens when you die?" Boone asked. Carter didn't answer immediately. His eyes moved again, past Boone, to Caleb. "They already know." Boone turned. Caleb didn't react. Didn't step forward. Didn't speak. Because he didn't need to. The decision had already been made. "You're going to let this continue," Boone said. Not a question. Carter's eyes closed slightly. Then opened again, one last time. "It already has." And just like that, the man who once owned everything in this house stopped breathing. No music, no sound. No orders. No final command. No collapse. Outside, the plantation didn't change, not even for a second. Boone stood there, staring at the body. Because now, he understood the truth. This didn't begin when Carter died. It began when he stopped being necessary. No one announced it. No one reacted. Edwin Carter was dead, and yet, nothing changed. Outside, the fields kept moving, water still carried. Tools still passed. Voices still low, calm, certain. No panic, no confusion, no shift in rhythm. Dr. Boone stood beside the bed, waiting for something to happen. Anything. A command, a breakdown, a mistake. But it never came. Because there was nothing left to interrupt. Caleb stepped forward, not quickly, not ceremonially, just forward. He closed Carter's eyes, simple, final, then he turned, and walked out of the room. No words. No signal. But it was understood. Boone followed, because now, there was nothing else to do. By midday, the house was empty, no servants, no workers, no voices, just open doors, and silence. Boone moved through the halls, room after room. Everything still there, nothing taken. Nothing disturbed. But no one, anywhere. He stepped outside, the fields, empty, tools left where they were dropped, water buckets still half full. Like everyone had simply stopped and walked away. Not in panic, not in flight, but together. Boone turned slowly, trying to understand how something this large could disappear without a trace. That's when he saw it, on the main table, inside the house, a document, handwritten, careful, deliberate, not a message, not a warning, a system. Boone read the first line, and stopped. Because it wasn't written like a plea, or a declaration. It was written like something that would continue, even without them. Guidelines, roles, decisions made collectively, work divided, not assigned. No names, no leader, no owner, just structure. Clean, intentional, complete. They hadn't destroyed the plantation. They had outgrown it. By the time Boone returned to Charleston, no one believed him. A plantation doesn't just empty itself. People don't vanish like that. There were searches, questions, accusations. But nothing was found, no bodies, no tracks, no evidence of struggle.
Abandoned estate, and a dead man in a bed. The document disappeared within a week, filed, locked away, then, forgotten. Years later, Boone would still think about it. Not the disappearance, not the mystery, but the order, the quiet, the certainty. Because whatever had happened there wasn't chaos. It was control. Just, not the kind anyone was used to. History would never record it. No names, no dates, no uprising. Because nothing was taken. Nothing was burned. Nothing was fought. It simply left. And that was something no system knew how to explain.